Welcome, everyone. Today's emergency unit government looks very different than in July when Parliament voted to nullify the reasonableness clause in the Basic Law, a measure that was cancelled yesterday by the Supreme Court. This new development in the midst of the war may throw us back into the deep political and social mess Israel was in before October 7th. So again, welcome everyone to this briefing. I'm Eli Klutstein, JPC Media and Content Director. I would remind you that you can use the Q&A option to present your questions, and we will, ask MK Rothman about them. Today, the Jerusalem Press Club is indeed a hosting member of the MK Simcha Rothman from the Religious Zionist Party, head of the Constitution, Law, and Justice Committee, who is considered to be one of the main forces driving the judicial reform. Hello, MK Rothman. Thank you for joining us. We know your time today is very short.
Shalom and good evening.
So please maybe start with a bit how you see the current situation.
Current situation is an interesting term. And if we talk about the war efforts, it's I think fact that the entire public and government of the state of Israel is united behind one goal is extremely important. Now I am starting with this issue because I know you did not brought me as a security expert. But I think that this is the key to understand why the ruling by the Supreme Court is out of place. It's not the time to deal with any other issues that is not directly connected to the war and to the unity of the forces and the unity in the public. I don't expect anyone to leave his ideology or his ideas behind. I think that the state of Israel needs an open discourse on all aspects of society and judicial reform included. But there is a time and there is a place for everything. And I think that a divisive ruling by the Supreme Court, even if it wasn't a split vote, if it wasn't 8-7, even if it was a larger majority, I don't think that anyone that is now and you know what, even if it was the other way around, even if my side would, quote unquote, win in the court, I don't think anyone who is fighting now for the lives of his fellow soldiers and for his family and the Otef Aza people and trying to get people people out of Hamas hostages. I don't think anyone needs to have another issue that bother its mind, be it the Supreme Court taking over the judicial, the basic laws of Israel, or another. If you on the other side, you're afraid that the Israeli politicians will take over the court. That's not the time to deal with this issue, and that's why this ruling is. I'm sad that the Supreme Court did not rise to the occasion, did not postpone the release of this ruling, but it won't change my mind. That's not the time to deal with it. That's why I'm not going to have a legal interpretation of the ruling and its effect and what it will be the day after, because I don't think it's relevant now. I think we all need to focus on one goal and one goal only, which is a victory of the state of Israel and the people who try to kill us, the supporters of the reform, and the people who object to the reform, secular and religious, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, whatever division you want to put on in the Israeli society. Our enemies don't care about it, and we shouldn't care about it, at least until we extinguish this threat on our border and on our people.
Okay, thank you very much. So now after you said all of this, so you mean this is not at the moment at all the agenda of the government, or do you speak for yourself at this moment, or is it something that represents the whole government? And do you think, regarding the other things you said, that this might actually affect the war, the outcomes of the war, the way the Israeli people look on the war?
So first, I will do everything. I'll answer the second question first. I will do whatever is in my power that it has as little effect on the war as possible. For me, it's more important than anything else. Um, I looked at the responses from most major players in the coalition and in the opposition, and I think that's what I say represent the vast majority of the politicians in Israel, coalition and opposition, and it's nothing anyone should wonder about. We are elected officials. We know what the public want and what the public need, and it's the same thing and this time, and we get feedback from the public that this is not the time. I hoped the Supreme Court will get the same feedback, but apparently it did not work, and that's why I think that it's not on the agenda of the coalition to address this ruling in the near future. Just it's out of context. You know, the words it depends on the context. Got a lot of bad publicity just recently when in the hearings of the heads of the universities in the US. It depends on the context, right? This ruling is out of context, and it depends on the context, the reaction. And I think that we should all be connected to the right context, which is Israel is at war now, and that's the only thing that is important.
Okay, Loren from CNN is asking, do you accept the claim that the Supreme Court had no choice to issue the ruling now, as two of its justices are due to step down, and that if you wanted a delay or a postponing of the ruling, you should have legislated to give them more time to issue the ruling?
First, there was an offer on the table by that, and it was widely objected by members, mostly from the opposition. The coalition said if it will be agreed, we might do it. And the opposition did not want, and what's the point in legislating something in order to prevent a divisive decision and making it a divisive decision by itself? So I think that was not the case. But the legislation is not important. I believe there is always a choice, and everyone who is in charge is responsible to its own choices. And the fact that the court has no choice, I find it very strange. Why does the court does not have a choice? Because two judges will leave the panel? Okay, so what? What will happen if two judges will leave the panel? It's the first time in the history of the state of Israel that we have a 15-panel decision. What would happen if it would be a 13-panel decision instead of 15? What was so urgent? So I don't accept the premise that it was urgent. And if something is important, you find a way. And apparently, the Supreme Court did not think that it's important not to have a divisive decision. And by the way, it's not the only case. If it was the only case, I would say, okay, the court is extremely careful not to issue divisive decision in the time of war, but he had no choice in this case. The court just recently released a decision that waited since 2009, and judges in those cases were not leaving the court anytime soon. So the court did not. I don't think we need to have any excuse for people who don't need the excuses. The court has the power to postpone this decision. He should have done it. He did not do it. It's a wartime. Let's talk about it in after the war.
Okay, so again, another reporter is asking, since you're not going to do anything at the moment, do you have any plans to the, more further future, what to do? Do you have any other legislation in mind?
I think that the need of a reform in Israeli judiciary and in the justice system at large is undebatable. Undebatable even before this ruling. The vast majority of the public of Israel supports a reform. There is a question which kind of reform needs to be done. And I hope that people that learned the lesson from October 7th, coalition and opposition alike, will get together and have a decision that will show that we care about the public of Israel. We want to make the reform in as large as big consensus as possible, and I think it's possible. We since October 7th, all the legislations that I had in my committee, even in issues that had the potential to be divisive, passed without coalition and opposition battles. Some people liked it, some people did not. Some people chose their battles, as they should in a political system that is based largely on consensus and not on divisive decisions.
Okay, another reporter is asking about the political implications of this ruling. Do you think this might strengthen the position of the Likud or your own party, or are you worried this might actually highlight a failed attempt to change the judicial system?
Again, I think the time to deal with it will be after the war. I don't think it's time to have a debate on the effects of this ruling. The one major effect that we all need to refrain from is the divisive aspect of this ruling, and this is not the time to as everything shouldn't be measured now as winners or losers. Some would say I read all kinds of interpretation, political interpretation of these rulings. I have to tell you, I heard this ruling when I was on my way out from the Knesset for a shiva of a soldier, a son of my good friend who died in the war. On the way, at the same second, the court released its ruling. There was another announcement of a neighbor of my wife's parents that died in the war. I think it's really not the time to have a political debate on any other issues that is not directly connected to winning this war.
Okay, so going onward, as a member of the coalition, do you think the government is actually fulfilling the goals of the war, or did the goals change so far? Like, do you think Israel is keeping up with its initial agenda for the campaign against Hamas? And I also got a question from another reporter about the Northern Front. We also see now all kinds of reports that a very high-ranking official of Hamas, Saleh El-Arouri, was killed in Lebanon. Do we have any plans? Do you know, as a member of the coalition, what's going to happen in the north?
So I think that's, and I hope this will be confirmed, that this high-ranking Hamas official was killed. Everyone and anyone who is involved with this terrorist organization, Hamas, the term Hamas is ISIS had never been more true. And anyone who is involved with this organization should fear for their lives, and that's the job of the state of Israel to make sure that happens. That's our security forces, and we are whole 100%. The entire society, the entire Israeli public, are behind them. I think the goals of the war are very clear. We need to make sure that the Gaza Strip is demilitarized. We need to make sure that there is no threat for our citizens. And we learned the lesson from October 7th. The majority and the public in Israel had learned the lesson. And I think the world also learned the lesson, and the people in the world who did not learn the lesson yet should learn the lesson. Because if we will let, as free countries, as free nations, if we will let this kind of monsters to walk around us, among us, and get payments from terror supporting countries like Qatar, or to get money through the Palestinian Authority through the pay for slay mechanism, or get legitimization by any other means, then the term "the West is next" is not going to be just a cliche. It will be a reality. So it's the wars that the state of Israel fights for the entire world. Some people understand it now. Some people will understand it later. And I think what we see also around Yemen and the Houthi the world starts to understand that this is not a battle of the state of Israel only. It is a battle of good versus evil that goes all around the world.
I understand. One reporter is asking about what you mentioned, the role of the Palestinian Authority. We know that the Prime Minister and the more, smaller cabinet wanted to debate the day after the war last week, and your party objected this discussion if it involves the Palestinian Authority. What's your party's position about the day after the war, basically?
So first, of course, the Palestinian Authority is out of the question. It should be out of the question for the U.S. also, and for any other freedom-loving country. In the U.S., they have a law saying you cannot transfer any money, any funds to the Palestinian Authority because they pay salaries for murderers, because they murder Jews. So it's out of the question that this Palestinian Authority will be part of any solution. I think that goes without saying. Now, we prevented the discussion in the smaller cabinet because the issue of the day after is an issue to be decided by the government and not by a smaller cabinet. Definitely not by a smaller cabinet that is it's less diverse in the opinions that you hear there. We are a democracy. We are a vibrant democracy, and the voices that are being heard by the public and by the politicians should be heard also in the discussion on the day after. If there is anything that we need to learn from October 7th is not to be stuck in one conception. We need to open ourselves to other ideas, and the world needs to open itself to other ideas too. For too long, the world and the international community, and you know what, even the Palestinians were captives by the idea of Palestinian Authority, two-state solution. They want peace. So we know now that's not the case. So let's not be stuck in the past. Let's find other solutions that worked in many other places around the world and might work in Israel, and not try to find solutions that the outcome will be another October 7th.
Do you have any examples of these kind of solutions you have in mind?
So I said first, the first rule is first do no harm, meaning get the negative operatives out of the question. Get them, if they're Hamas, kill them wherever you can, and if it's get the Palestinian Authority away from any possibility to teach more children how to kill Jews or to pay for more salaries for terrorists. So that's a first step. Israel should have total control of any security aspect of the Gaza Strip, because we know this is a must-have. In the first step, we must take over the Philadelphia line, because we must make sure that no other weapons and no other military Hamas operatives are coming through and reinforcing their forces in Gaza. We need to make sure that they're not near any of our communities. There are a lot of things to be done, but first we need to defeat Hamas. That's the major objective. No one who went in the Normandy shore on the D-Day, no soldier carried in his backpacks the plan of Berlin or a Marshall Plan or whatever. He knew he went to fight the Nazis and defeat the evil. And what will happen the day after the evil is being defeated? We'll have enough time to talk about it later.
Okay, we have time for one last question, as I understand you need to go. So one reporter is asking again about the political aspect, about the polls. We see that the public isn't very happy from your party and the Likud maybe, while, for instance, Ben Gvir from Otzma Yehudit is getting higher numbers. Do you think the public is not happy with the way the government is actually managing this war?
No, I think that looking at polls at all dealing with politics now, but definitely doing a poll when there is no election in the near future is not the right way to look at the Israeli public, or any other public for that matter. We see a great unity on the way the state of Israel conducts this war, and major support in the forces, in the public. That's not a question. There were 2 or 3 weeks that my party in those polls that you mentioned went a little bit down, but I think in the last poll it's already back to normal, or back to the situation before the war. But again, I don't think that's relevant. I think the major issue is where the public is on the major issues that the state of Israel faces. And on those issues, the majority of the public in Israel accepts the ideas that my party and the people around me were talking about for so many years. For many years, the idea that we need to undo the disengagement from Gaza and make sure that the IDF is in control and not giving control to our enemies. That looked like extreme far right resolution that only people in the far right can talk about. I think today the vast majority, I think maybe 70 or 80% of the public in Israel understand that the disengagement was a mistake, maybe 90%. I think the fact that we got out even from northern Samaria, that we canceled it in the beginning of this government, the disengagement from northern Samaria. People now, when the IDF forces are operating in Jenin and Tulkarem, and found out that our enemies there planned for us in the center of the state of Israel, the same thing that our enemies in Gaza planned and fulfilled their plans on October 7th, getting the people to understand that you can't run away from terror. You need to defeat the terror, and no one will do it instead of you.
Okay, I think this is very clear. Member of the Knesset Simcha Rothman, the Religious Zionist Party, and head of the Law, Constitution, and Justice Committee. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, and good evening.
Good evening, everyone.